About reports of this plan by the Trump administration, quote, to move 1 million Palestinians from Gaza to Libya.
Daily Mad News. Mad News. Daily Mad News. Mad News. Daily Mad News. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's episode of the Daily Mad News with your host, for Bizzo, coming to you live and direct from the Mad News headquarters right here in London. So, what is the Mad News for today? Daily Mad News. Donald Trump is making plans to deport 1 million Palestinians to Africa. Daily Mad News. According to the Telegraph, Trump making plans to move 1 million Palestinians to Africa. U.S. in discussion with Libya about taking in Gazans, according to the U.S. media post. Daily Mad News. There's also an article from the NBC that says, Trump administration working on plan to move 1 million Palestinians to Libya. Details are murky and no final agreement has been reached, but the plan is under serious enough consideration that the administration has discussed it with Libyan leadership. Daily Mad News.
Talking about reports of this plan by the Trump administration, quote, to move 1 million Palestinians from Gaza to Libya. Tell us about that.
That's right. This is an NBC News report, which certainly there's been some pushback from the State Department and White House about. But apparently, according to this report, the White House has been in talks with leaders in Libya about a plan to relocate up to 1 million Palestinians from Gaza. And in return, the US would agree to unfreeze billions of dollars of Libyan funds.
Daily Mad News. In order for Trump to make this move, Trump needs some legal backing. Trump needs some sort of legal backing in order to do this. He can't just do this because he wants to. Now, what kind of legal backing might Donald Trump think is got to do that? Daily Mad News. The first thing I want us to look at is the presidential emergency power. Yeah. So, presidential emergency power with the U.S. law under the International Emergency Economics Powers Act, which is the IEEPA. Yeah. A U.S. president can take extraordinary actions during national emergencies. Yeah. However, this action is mostly limited to economical sanctions. Yeah. Not mass relocation of foreign nationals, because the IEEPA itself has limitation, and the IEEPA does not have the authority to forcibly relocate population across borders. Daily Mad News.
Territory of death and destruction for many years. And, I have concepts for Gaza that I think are very good. Make it a freedom zone. Let the United States get involved and make it just a freedom zone. Have a real freedom zone. Because it seems that Gaza, every time, every 10 years it happens, and more than that, it really happens all throughout. They've never solved the Gaza problem. And if you look at it, I have aerial shots where, there's practically no building standing.
Daily Mad News. Trump can also try to think that it can rely on the humanitarian assistance framework. So let's look at the U.S. humanitarian assistance framework. The United States humanitarian assistance framework provides a system for delivering life-saving aid to vulnerable populations worldwide, with a focus of refugees and displaced people. Daily Mad News. The United States might want to use this framework. Yeah, they might argue that this framework is a voluntary humanitarian relocation, and they can facilitate it under USRAP, which is the United States Refugee Admissions Program, or might also use UNHCR to carry this out. But the problem is, any mass movement must be voluntary. Do you understand my point? Consensual. If it's not voluntary and consensual, it breaches the humanitarian refugee protection standards. Daily Mad News.
Apparently, according to this report, the White House has been in talks with leaders in Libya about a plan to relocate up to 1 million Palestinians from Gaza. And in return, the US would agree to unfreeze billions of dollars of Libyan funds. They've been frozen, of course, since the uprising against Gaddafi and the civil war that followed about 14 years ago.
Daily Man News. They are trying to use a bilateral agreement with Libya to carry this out. Now, what we need to go and look at is the bilateral agreement between the US and Libya. Daily Man News. If you go to the website of the United States Department of State and you see the US relations with Libya, yeah, it's a bilateral economic relationships, and it says there, two-way trade in goods between the United States and Libya totaled more than 1.1 billion in 2019. The United States has also signed a trade and investment framework agreement with the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, of which Libya is a member. There is no details of any migration or relocation of any citizen of any other country in the bilateral economical relationship agreement with Libya. Daily Man News.
It's been a civil war. Libya still has two competing rival governments. Now, all of this fits with what we've been hearing from Donald Trump in recent weeks and months about his idea of redeveloping Gaza, putting it under US control even, turning it into what he called a Riviera of the Middle East. He said that at a press conference with Benjamin Netanyahu in the last few days. He's reiterated that idea of turning Gaza into a freedom zone.
Daily Man News. I want us to look at the Geneva Convention of 1949. Yeah, it actually details the protocols of deportation, transfers, and evacuation. Now, if you look at Article 49, let's have a read through. Individual or mass forcibly transfer, as well as deportation of protected persons from occupied territory to the territory of an occupying power or to that of any other country, occupied or not, are prohibited regardless of their motive. Daily Man News. The problem for Trump is Gaza is considered occupied territory under international law. Palestinians in Gaza are protected persons. Yeah, even voluntarily looking into relocations can be unlawful if carried out under duress, coercion, or the absence of viable alternatives. Daily Man News. If you look at the copy of the Rome Statute of International Criminal Court, I want us to look at Article 7, right? So, Article 7. Article 7 talks about crimes against humanity. So, let's have a read through. Where we actually go in this paragraph is D, but let's have a read through. For the purpose of this statute, crime against humanity means any of the following acts when committed as part of a widespread or systematic attack directly against any civilian population with the knowledge of the attack. A. Murder. B. Extermination. C. Enslavement. D. Deportation or forcibly transfer of population. So, if Donald Trump should transfer 1 million Palestinians to Libya, he has already committed crime against humanity according to Article 7 of the Statute of Rome. Daily Man News.
Moral objection that many would say this is frankly tantamount to ethnic cleansing, and already there's been criticism of it from leaders of Hamas. And also on a logistical and practical level, moving 1 million people by road or plane would be extremely difficult and expensive.
Daily Man News. The UN Charter and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which is the ICPPR, they affirms the right of all people to self-determination, which includes the right of somebody to remain and stay in their homeland. Yeah. So on that basis, Donald Trump cannot relocate Palestinians to Libya, because that means that you're breaking, that means you're going against the human right, the right to self-determination. Daily Man News. Under international law and human rights law, Donald Trump has no right to do this. But as we all know, America is one of the world's greatest power. They can do what they want. Let's see how this plans out. If you like what I do, make sure you like and subscribe and watch out for my next episode. Until I see you again. Daily Man News. Man News. Daily Man News. Man News. Daily Man News.